Well, it was a very nice walk, but it was very cold. So here I am, back in my house, and I want to talk to you about some of the uses of the wood that we've been learning about. So I'm in my living room here, and in this room alone, I can see dozens and dozens of products that have been made from wood. Right up behind me, you might see some of the picture frames there of some photographs that I took on my travels. Well, the outer frame and the backing is both made from wood, of course. And then I've got furniture in my room, like this old chest that's made from wood, pine, old antique pine. Also got the coaster for my cup of coffee there, made from wood. We've got all sorts of furniture, even part of my old antique, not that part, but the antique sewing machine that I have there is made from wood. I don't suppose too many of you have got things like that lying around at home. Guitar, and the list goes on and on. So what I want you to do, so this is the next pause point, the next task, is I'd like you to make a list of as many items as you can find in your house, or you can imagine are in your house if you're not at home, that are made from wood or partly made from wood. Now I'm expecting at least 10 products, but I think some of you might get up to maybe even 20 or maybe 30 products. The kitchen is a good place to start. Good luck. So I hope you managed to name loads and loads of products in your homes that are made from wood. I certainly have a really long list of things. Now, some of the products that you named may well be quite large products, maybe sort of quite big boards made of sheet material. And have you ever wondered how those bits of wood came to be? Because if you think back to on the common where the trees were growing, if you take an average tree, the trunk is only, even a big tree, it's probably only going to be about 60 centimeters in diameter. Now, what we do is we strip the bark from the tree and we put it through a saw and we turn it into planks. And that's brilliant if you only ever want to make floorboards or you want to make thin shelves. But what if you want to make really large sheets, big bits of furniture? Maybe you want to do big flooring. Perhaps you want to make big hoardings of boards. Whatever it is, how do we do that? Well, that's when we need something called manufactured board. So you've already learnt 2 types of woods and we're adding a third category. So we've got softwoods you've already learnt about, hardwoods you've already learnt about, and now this is the one you need to concentrate on now. It's called manufactured boards. And as the name suggests, it's not a natural wood. These are boards that have been made by humans and machines to enable us to not only use some of the offcuts of materials cheaply so that we can make other sheets, but also to make much larger boards. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk you through 4 different types of manufactured board. So come over to my coffee table. Right, okay, so what I've done here is I've just dug out a few bits of wood from my attic and I'm going to talk through them. So this is the first one I'd like to talk to you about, and this is called MDF, and that stands for medium density fiberboard. Okay, and as you can see, it's a nice sort of straight, smooth piece of wood. You might well be able to see that it has lots of sort of little fibers, okay, as you'd expect from the name. So this has been made from, if you can imagine what sawdust is like. So imagine that, in a factory they make furniture from pine and then they cut it up, it creates lots of dust. If you collect enough of that dust, you can actually reuse it and make it into board. So it's just loads and loads and loads of offcuts and bits of wood and fibre that have been put together with glue and compressed and made into a really rigid board. And it comes in huge sizes. So this is just a tiny little strip that I have here, and it comes in lots of different thicknesses. Now, because it's made of very fine fibre, it's actually quite dangerous to cut. It creates a real nasty dust. So you always have to wear a mask with MDF if you're ever cutting it. So that's MDF, very, very common, very cheap, used to make cheap shelving or furniture and lots of things really. Okay, moving on. So that was number 1. Number 2, one of my favorites, and this is plywood. Okay, so plywood is similarly, it's been made, it's a big sheet material, but it's slightly different in the way that it's made. You might be able to see on the ends there that there's stripes. Okay, so the reason that there are stripes is because plywood is made by laminating. That means gluing. Okay, so that's all that word really means. Gluing together layers of wood, and they're glued together in opposite directions. So the first layer of wood is the grain is going this way. The next layer of wood, it's at a right angle and going in the opposite direction. And then the third layer of wood underneath is going this way again, and so on. And that's why you get the sort of stripy effect on the edges. What that means is you end up with a really, really strong material because the fibres are all going at right angles to each other. So unlike natural wood, that if you put it under pressure, you might find that it bows and it sags after a while because all the fibres are running in this and the grain are running in the same direction. Whereas this, it's sort of bracing itself and working against each other. So it comes in loads of different thicknesses, and what's really good about it is it's very, very light for its size. So it's strong and it's light, which means that it has a really good strength to weight ratio. So very popular, again, used for all sorts of different things. We'll be using it in school because it's quite cheap as well. They even, believe it or not, used to use it in aeroplanes because you can have it in such thin sheets and it's very light. Okay, number 3. This is chipboard. Looks a little bit different to normal chipboard because this chipboard has a veneer on it. A veneer is when you just cover the top of something to make it look like something it's not. So if I turn it over, you'll see on the underside here, this is actually the top, and this used to be the top of an IKEA chest of drawers. And it looks, because it's got a grain, it looks like it could be made from a solid piece of pine, but actually it's a bit of a cheat because when you look at the side, what you will see is lots and lots of chips. Okay, a very rough texture, and it's actually only the outer layer. It's a little bit like a piece of paper, if you will, that's been stuck on the top. That has got grain on it. This normally is pine. It is cut from wood. It's not. It's been put together in a few strips. So it gives the illusion, sometimes it's printed so it's even cheaper and it's actually not even really wood. But it gives the illusion that it's a solid piece of wood. But it's not, it's chipboard. Now, chipboard is exactly as the name suggests, it's made of chips of wood. So if you like, it's the rougher version of MDF, where MDF is made from tiny bits of fibre. Chipboard is made from slightly larger chunks. Similar to MDF, it's quite cheap. It can be made in big sheets. It's very heavy chipboard, so it's not so good for any sort of light applications. It's used frequently in cheap furniture, and it's also used for things like flooring. So underneath your carpet, your floor may have been made with a covering of chipboard. You might find it in your attic. It's a sort of material that you use to kind of make the sort of floor of an attic. So that's chipboard for you. And the last one I wanted to show you is this one here, and this is still attached to its product, which is a photo frame. And anyone that's ever used a photo frame and put an image in the back of it, taking it apart, they'll know exactly what this type of wood is. It's very thin, it's very cheap, It's quite smooth on one side, but on the other side it's usually quite rough. It can be smooth on both sides, just depends on the type. And this is probably the cheapest type of board, manufactured board, that you can get. And it's really only useful for things, you know, like the back of a photo frame, or perhaps you often used to see it in the back of a wardrobe, or you might have it at the bottom of a drawer, in a chest of drawers. But it's not very strong really, and it doesn't like moisture, so it can become quite bowed and warped. So it's not structurally very strong, but it works for something like this, where really it's just about keeping the back of the frame in and keeping the shape of the frame. So you've just had there 4 different types, I'm going to sit back down again, of manufactured board. And so now you've got some pause point activities. So question number 1, I'd like you to define what manufactured board is. So explain what a manufactured board is. Question number 2, I'd like you please to point out 2 advantages of a manufactured board over using natural wood. So why is it we bother even making manufactured board? So what's the advantage of it? And then question 3 is see how many of the 4 examples of manufactured board you can remember. So I'd like you to name all 4 of them. The extra challenge would be next to the name of them to explain some of their attributes. So for example, you know, how they're made, some of the advantages and disadvantages of each board. Okay, good luck. Hope you don't get bored.